There comes a moment in every man's life when the noise of the world grows quieter than the voice inside his own chest. A moment when the applause no longer matters, when the opinions no longer sting, when distractions lose their flavor, when comfort begins to feel like a prison instead of a reward, and in that moment something ancient awakens. Not ambition, not greed, not the shallow hunger for money or status. Something deeper, a realization. The realization that the life you are living right now is either building you into a king or slowly turning you into a servant of your own weakness. Because every day, whether you realize it or not, you are constructing a man through your thoughts, through your habits, through what you tolerate, through what you chase, through what you run from. Brick by brick, decision by decision, moment by moment, you are building someone. And the terrifying truth is this: most people spend their entire lives trying to build an empire before they ever build the person capable of sustaining one. They chase wealth without discipline, power without wisdom, recognition without identity. So even when success arrives, it crushes them, because success does not transform weak men into strong ones. It reveals them. Money magnifies character. Pressure exposes foundations. Responsibility unmasks illusion. And the world is filled with broken people sitting on top of achievements they were never mentally prepared to carry. That is why your first mission is not to build the empire. Your first mission is to build the man who can withstand chaos without collapsing, the man who can remain focused while the world burns with distraction, the man who does not need validation because his purpose is louder than public opinion, the man who can stare failure in the face without surrendering his vision, the man who keeps walking when nobody claps, the man who becomes dangerous not because he destroys others, but because he finally conquers himself. Because self-mastery is the first kingdom, and until you rule your own mind, you will never rule your destiny. Most people wake up already defeated, not because life is unfair, not because opportunity does not exist, but because they surrendered control of their inner world. They wake up and immediately absorb fear. They consume negativity before they consume intention. They flood their minds with comparison. They live reacting instead of creating. And slowly, without even noticing it, they become products of external forces, pulled by trends, controlled by emotion, manipulated by comfort, distracted by entertainment. They do not think, they drift. But drifting has never built greatness. Every empire ever created began first as a vision inside the mind of someone who refused to think like the crowd. The skyscraper existed in thought before it touched the sky. The invention existed in imagination before it entered reality. The revolution existed in belief before it changed history. Everything external is born from something internal. That means your future is not created first by your hands. It is created by your mind. Your thoughts are not small things. They are commands. What you repeatedly tell yourself becomes the architecture of your identity. If you constantly speak weakness, you condition weakness. If you rehearse fear, you strengthen fear. If you dwell on limitation, you train your mind to search for evidence of limitation. But when you begin speaking vision into your life, something changes. Not instantly, not magically, but fundamentally. Because the mind is like fertile soil. Whatever is planted consistently eventually grows. That is why guarding your mind is not optional. It is survival. Protect your focus. Protect your standards. Protect your energy. Protect your imagination. Because the world will gladly program mediocrity into you if you allow it. It will tell you to be realistic, to stay safe, to lower your expectations, to avoid risk, to fit in, to seek comfort. But comfort has buried more potential than failure ever will. Comfort convinces people to abandon their calling. Comfort seduces ambition into sleep. Comfort slowly transforms capable men into spectators of other people's lives. And one day they wake up with a soul full of regret because they spent decades avoiding temporary pain only to inherit permanent emptiness. You were not born for that. You were born with the ability to create, to lead, to endure, to rise, but potential means nothing without direction. A scattered mind creates a scattered life. That is why clarity becomes power. The moment a man becomes clear about who he is, what he values, and where he is going, he becomes difficult to stop, not because obstacles disappear, but because confusion disappears. Most people are exhausted not from hard work, but from internal conflict. They want greatness but love distraction. They want freedom but worship comfort. They want success but fear judgment. They want transformation without sacrifice, so they remain divided. And a divided mind cannot build a powerful life. You must decide. Decide what kind of man you will become. Decide what you stand for. Decide what you refuse to tolerate. Decide what matters enough to suffer for. Because once the decision becomes absolute, your energy changes. Indecision weakens force. Decision concentrates it. The river cuts through stone not because it is violent, but because it is focused, and focused men become unstoppable. Look at the people who changed the world. They were not always the smartest, not always the strongest, not always the most talented, but they possessed an obsession, a burning inner certainty, an unwillingness to betray the vision living inside them. While others hesitated, they committed. While others doubted, they persisted. While others looked for guarantees, they moved forward anyway. Because deep down they understood something most people never learn. Confidence is not something you wait to feel. It is something you build through action. You do not become fearless before taking the step. You become fearless because you keep taking steps despite fear. Courage is not the absence of uncertainty. It is movement in spite of uncertainty. And every time you act in alignment with your higher vision, you strengthen your identity. Every disciplined morning, every hard conversation, every promise kept, every temptation resisted, every excuse rejected, you are casting votes for the man you are becoming. That is why discipline is sacred. Discipline is not punishment. It is self-respect in action. When a man can command himself, he no longer becomes a slave to impulse. He does not need motivation to move. He does not negotiate with laziness. He does not wait for perfect conditions. He acts because he has trained himself to act. And this is where most people lose. They romanticize success while avoiding routine. But empires are not built in moments of inspiration. They are built in repetition, in the unseen hours, in the early mornings, in the silent sacrifices, in the days nobody witnesses. The world celebrates outcomes, but destiny is shaped in private. Behind every powerful man is a collection of invisible decisions nobody applauded. The workout he almost skipped, the business he kept building when profit was absent, the studying he continued when results were slow, the lonely nights where doubt whispered louder than hope. That is where identity is forged, not in comfort, in resistance. Steel is strengthened by fire, and men are strengthened by adversity. Stop asking why life became difficult. Ask what the difficulty is trying to teach you, because struggle is often preparation disguised as pain. The pressure you feel may not be destroying you. It may be introducing you to a stronger version of yourself. Think about the oak tree. If it grows without wind, its roots remain weak. The resistance is what forces depth. Your hardships are building depth. The betrayal taught discernment. The failure taught strategy. The loneliness taught independence. The rejection taught resilience. Every painful season carried hidden instruction, but only if you choose to learn instead of collapse. Weak men become bitter through suffering. Strong men become wiser. One blames the world, The other studies himself. One asks, why is this happening to me? The other asks, what must I become because of this? That question changes everything, because growth begins the moment responsibility replaces blame. The day you stop waiting for rescue, your power returns. No mentor can save a man unwilling to change. No opportunity can fix a lazy mindset. No amount of money can heal a lack of purpose. External solutions cannot repair internal disorder. You must become aligned. Your thoughts aligned with your goals. Your habits aligned with your standards. Your actions aligned with your vision. And once alignment occurs, momentum begins. Not because life suddenly becomes easy, but because your energy stops leaking in 10 different directions. A focused mind is a force of nature. Have you ever noticed how powerful the sun becomes when concentrated through a magnifying glass? It can create fire. Your mind works the same way. Most people scatter their energy across distraction, gossip, entertainment, anxiety, comparison, and emotional chaos. Then they wonder why their lives never change. Power comes from concentration. That means if you want extraordinary results, you must become ruthless about what enters your mind. Not everyone deserves access to your energy. Not every opinion deserves your attention. Not every desire deserves pursuit. Maturity is learning the difference between movement and progress. Just because you are busy does not mean you are building. Many people spend their lives climbing ladders only to discover they leaned them against the wrong wall. So ask yourself, what are you actually building? A life that looks impressive, or a life that feels meaningful? Because there is a difference. The world teaches people to chase image, but image without substance collapses under pressure. Real power comes from internal solidity. A man who knows himself becomes calm. A man who controls himself becomes dangerous. A man who believes in his mission becomes magnetic. People can feel conviction, not the loud performance of confidence, not arrogance, not ego. True conviction, the quiet certainty of someone who has suffered for a vision and refused to abandon it. That energy changes rooms, because most people are starving for direction. They are drowning in information but starving for purpose, connected to everyone yet disconnected from themselves, stimulated constantly yet spiritually exhausted. And in a world addicted to distraction, clarity becomes rare, which means the man who develops clarity gains an advantage almost impossible to compete against. But clarity requires silence. You cannot hear your deeper purpose while constantly consuming noise. Sometimes you must disconnect from the world long enough to reconnect with yourself. Turn off the chaos. Sit with your thoughts. Face your fears. Ask the uncomfortable questions. What do you truly want? What kind of life would make you proud? What excuses have you been hiding behind? What potential remains buried because you fear failure? Those questions matter because the quality of your life is shaped by the quality of the questions you ask yourself. Most people avoid introspection because it demands honesty. And honesty is painful. It is painful to admit you have wasted time. Painful to admit fear has controlled you. Painful to admit your habits do not match your ambitions. But truth is liberating. Because once you see clearly, you can finally change. Denial traps people. Awareness frees them. So stop lying to yourself. You already know where you are undisciplined. You already know where you are shrinking. You already know which habits are stealing your future. The answer is not more excuses. The answer is transformation. And transformation begins with standards. The standards you accept determine the life you experience. If you tolerate mediocrity in your habits, mediocrity becomes your reality. If you tolerate weakness in your thinking, weakness becomes your identity. If you tolerate distraction, confusion becomes permanent. Raise your standards. Demand more from yourself, not from self-hatred, from self-respect, because deep down you know you are capable of more. You can feel it, There is a version of you waiting on the other side of discipline, a version of you with greater strength, greater peace, greater confidence, greater impact. But that version cannot emerge while you continue feeding the habits that keep you small. You cannot build an empire with the mindset that created your limitations. Something must die. The excuses must die. The victim mentality must die. The addiction to comfort must die. The fear of judgment must die. The weak identity must die. Not physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, because every new level of life demands the death of an old version of yourself. And this is where many people turn back, not because they lack ability, but because growth feels like loss before it feels like gain. When you evolve, certain relationships fade, certain habits disappear, certain environments no longer fit. You outgrow versions of yourself, and that process can feel lonely. But loneliness is sometimes the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. Do not fear that season. The caterpillar dissolves completely before becoming the butterfly. Transformation is messy. There will be moments where you doubt yourself, moments where progress feels invisible, moments where exhaustion tempts surrender. Keep going. The seed looks buried before it breaks through the soil. Invisible growth is still growth. One of the greatest tragedies in life is people quitting during the invisible season. They stop because they cannot yet see results. They stop because recognition has not arrived. They stop because the reward is delayed. But the universe tests commitment before revealing opportunity. Can you remain faithful to the process before the evidence appears? Can you continue building when nobody believes in you? Can you maintain discipline when there is no applause? That is the difference between dreamers and builders. Dreamers become emotionally dependent on inspiration. Builders become committed to execution, and execution changes lives. Not ideas alone, not wishes, not potential. Action. Massive, consistent, focused action. That is the bridge between imagination and reality. You can visualize greatness all day long, but eventually your feet must move. The warrior mentality is built through movement. A warrior does not wait to feel ready. He prepares while moving. He adapts while moving. He learns while moving. Momentum creates clarity. Many people remain stuck because they overthink every step. But overthinking is often fear wearing the mask of intelligence. You do not need perfect certainty to begin. You need courage. The path reveals itself through action. And once you begin acting with conviction, something incredible happens. Your self-image starts to evolve. You stop seeing yourself as weak. You stop identifying as confused. You stop viewing yourself as powerless, because evidence changes belief. Every disciplined action becomes proof. Every challenge survived becomes proof. Every obstacle overcome becomes proof. You begin trusting yourself. And self-trust is one of the most valuable forms of power a human being can possess. Because when a man trusts himself, he no longer crumbles under uncertainty. He knows he can adapt. He knows he can recover. He knows he can endure. That confidence cannot be purchased. It must be earned. Earned through hardship. Earned through consistency. Earned through keeping promises to yourself. That is why integrity matters. Not only honesty with others, honesty with yourself. Every time you betray your word to yourself, your confidence weakens. You say you will wake up early, then you don't. You say you will stay disciplined, then you fold. You say you will pursue your purpose, then you procrastinate. And slowly your own mind stops trusting you. But when your actions align with your words, inner strength grows. You become solid, reliable, grounded. And grounded men build lasting empires, not overnight empires, not fragile empires, lasting ones. Because true success is not built on hype. It is built on foundations, and foundations take time. The problem is that modern culture worships speed. People want transformation in 30 days, wealth in a year, mastery without apprenticeship, recognition without sacrifice. But nature does not rush. The mountain is not formed overnight. The diamond is not created without pressure. The giant oak does not explode from the ground in a single afternoon. Everything powerful grows through process. And so will you. Patience is not weakness. It is disciplined faith. It is the ability to continue building even when immediate reward is absent. Most people abandon their future because they become addicted to immediate gratification. They trade long-term greatness for short-term comfort, a few hours of distraction, a temporary escape, a meaningless pleasure, and little by little they sell pieces of their destiny for moments that leave no lasting value. But the man who builds the empire thinks differently. He understands that every decision compounds, every disciplined action compounds, every repeated habit compounds, every focused hour compounds, every intentional sacrifice compounds. Your life tomorrow is being shaped by what you repeatedly do today. That means greatness is rarely one dramatic moment. It is thousands of invisible choices stacked over time. This is why your daily routine matters more than your occasional motivation. Anyone can feel inspired for a day. Anyone can work hard when emotions are high. But can you stay committed when the excitement disappears? Can you continue when the process becomes repetitive? Can you remain loyal to the vision when results are slow? That is where separation occurs, because the average man operates according to emotion. The exceptional man operates according to principle. Emotion changes with the weather. Principle remains steady. And if you build your life only on emotion, you will collapse the moment life becomes difficult. Some mornings you will not feel motivated. Some nights you will feel exhausted. Some seasons will test every ounce of belief you possess. But purpose must become stronger than mood. A ship does not abandon its destination because storms appear. It adjusts its sails and keeps moving. You must learn to do the same. Adaptability is power. Rigid people break under pressure. Flexible people evolve through it. Life will force changes upon you. Unexpected failures, financial setbacks, loss, disappointment, betrayal, moments where your carefully designed plans collapse without warning. And in those moments, many people lose themselves because they built their identity around circumstances instead of character. But circumstances change constantly. Character endures. The empire builder does not panic when the environment shifts. He studies, adjusts, learns, moves. He understands that obstacles are not interruptions to the journey. They are part of the journey. The storm is not separate from the path. The storm is the path, and every challenge carries hidden opportunity for the person willing to see it. History has proven this repeatedly. Some of the greatest breakthroughs were born during periods of crisis. Some of the strongest leaders emerged through adversity. Some of the most extraordinary lives were forged inside impossible situations. Why? Because pressure reveals hidden capacity. Most people have no idea how powerful they truly are because they flee discomfort before discovering their depth. You are capable of far more than your current identity believes. Far more resilience, far more discipline, far more creativity, far more leadership, far more endurance. But those qualities remain dormant until life demands them. That is why difficult seasons should not always be feared. Sometimes life is stripping away weakness. Sometimes life is forcing growth. Sometimes life is preparing your shoulders for greater responsibility. Because the size of the empire you can build will always be connected to the weight you are capable of carrying. Weak shoulders cannot carry massive vision. That is why internal development must always come before external expansion. Imagine giving unlimited power to a man without discipline. He destroys himself. Imagine giving massive wealth to someone without emotional control. He becomes consumed by excess. Imagine giving influence to someone without wisdom. He creates chaos. Success amplifies whatever already exists within you. So if you want a powerful future, build a powerful inner world first. Strengthen your mind. Strengthen your habits. Strengthen your emotional control. Strengthen your integrity. Strengthen your vision. The stronger the foundation, the greater the structure it can support. And understand this clearly. Mental strength is not created by avoiding pain. It is created by surviving it consciously. There are people who experience hardship and become broken, and there are people who experience hardship and become unshakable. The difference is meaning. One person sees suffering as proof life is against them. The other sees suffering as training. Perspective changes power. Two men can walk through the same storm and emerge completely different. One leaves bitter, the other leaves wiser. One leaves defeated, the other leaves transformed. Your interpretation of adversity matters because your mind is always searching for evidence to support the story you repeatedly tell yourself. If you constantly say life is unfair, your mind searches for proof. If you constantly say growth is possible, your mind searches for opportunity. That is why belief is one of the most powerful forces on earth. Human beings move in the direction of their dominant beliefs. A man who believes he is powerless behaves differently from a man who believes he can create change. One hesitates, the other acts. One avoids risk, the other embraces challenge. One waits for permission, the other takes responsibility. Belief alters behavior. Behavior alters outcomes. Outcomes reinforce belief. That cycle can either imprison you or elevate you. So guard your beliefs carefully. Do not allow temporary failure to define your identity. Failure is an event, not a person. The entrepreneur who loses money is not a failure. The athlete who loses a game is not a failure. The man who falls down is not a failure. Failure only becomes permanent when a person stops rising. Every master was once unskilled. Every leader was once uncertain. Every visionary once doubted himself. But they continued. That single decision changed everything. Persistence has built more empires than talent ever will, because talent without endurance eventually collapses. There are gifted people everywhere living average lives because they lacked consistency. Meanwhile, disciplined individuals with relentless persistence often surpass naturally talented people. Why? Because the world rewards execution, and execution requires stamina. You must become mentally durable, the kind of person who does not emotionally collapse every time life becomes inconvenient. Right now, too many people are controlled by emotional weather. If they feel inspired, they move. If they feel discouraged, they stop. If someone criticizes them, they shrink. If progress slows down, they quit. That is not strength. That is dependency. Real power is emotional command. The ability to remain centered regardless of circumstances. The ability to continue moving despite discomfort. The ability to stay disciplined even when emotions fluctuate. This is what separates leaders from followers. Followers require external energy. Leaders generate internal energy, and internal energy comes from purpose. Purpose is fuel. When a man discovers a mission greater than comfort, he becomes capable of extraordinary endurance. He can survive longer, work harder, sacrifice more, recover faster, because purpose transforms pain. A man carrying bricks for survival grows exhausted. A man building a cathedral through those same bricks finds meaning. The work changes when the vision changes. This is why you must connect your goals to something deeper than ego. Money alone is not enough. Status alone is not enough. Attention alone is not enough. Those things fade, but purpose endures. Purpose gives suffering direction. Purpose gives discipline meaning. Purpose gives sacrifice value. And when purpose becomes clear, distractions lose their power. You stop wasting years trying to impress people who are not building anything themselves. You stop needing approval from individuals who abandon their own dreams. You stop shrinking your ambition to make insecure people comfortable. Because once your mission becomes sacred, opinions become background noise. Understand this. The crowd rarely recognizes vision before results appear. People celebrate success publicly after mocking the process privately. That is why you cannot depend on external validation. If your confidence relies on applause, criticism will destroy you. You must become internally anchored. Know who you are before the world tells you who to be. The modern world profits from insecurity. Insecure people buy things they do not need, seek attention they do not truly value, follow trends they do not even believe in. But secure individuals become difficult to manipulate. A man grounded in purpose does not chase every distraction. He chooses deliberately. He understands that attention is one of the greatest forms of currency on earth. Whatever captures your attention eventually shapes your reality. If your attention is consumed by negativity, your mind darkens. If your attention is consumed by comparison, your confidence weakens. If your attention is consumed by meaningless stimulation, your focus deteriorates. But when attention is directed toward growth, vision, discipline, learning, and execution, life begins transforming. This is why focus has become a superpower. Most people cannot sit alone with their thoughts for 10 minutes without reaching for distraction. Silence terrifies them because silence reveals what distraction hides. It reveals insecurity, avoidance, fear, unhealed wounds, lack of direction. But the man willing to face himself gains access to immense strength because awareness creates the possibility of change. You cannot conquer what you refuse to confront. Face your habits, face your fears, face your patterns, face the areas where you sabotage yourself. That confrontation is not weakness. It is courage. The strongest men are not those who pretend to have no flaws. The strongest men are those honest enough to transform them. Growth demands humility, and humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is being willing to learn. Arrogance freezes growth because arrogant people believe they already know enough. But the empire builder remains a student forever. He studies success, studies failure, studies human nature, studies psychology, studies communication, studies leadership, studies himself, because knowledge compounds just like money. Every lesson learned becomes another tool. Every insight gained becomes another advantage. And in a rapidly changing world, adaptability through learning becomes essential. The people who survive are not always the strongest. Often they are the ones most willing to evolve. Never become so attached to your current identity that you resist necessary growth. You are not meant to remain who you were 5 years ago. Expansion requires reinvention. The man who builds the empire continuously upgrades himself. His thinking evolves. His standards evolve. His discipline evolves. His vision evolves. Because stagnation is slow death. Life itself is movement, growth, expansion. And the moment a person becomes comfortable remaining average, decline begins quietly, not immediately, but gradually. Dreams shrink. Energy fades. Belief weakens. Potential hardens into regret. That is why you must protect the fire within you. The world will try to extinguish it. Some people will project their limitations onto you. Others will criticize your ambition because it reminds them of their own inaction. Some will misunderstand your discipline. Others will resent your transformation. Keep building anyway. An eagle does not stop flying because crows are making noise. And you cannot allow small minds to determine the size of your future. There are people right now waiting for the version of you that has not fully emerged yet. The stronger leader, the wiser father, the disciplined creator, the courageous visionary. Your growth is not only about you. When you rise, you create permission for others to rise too. Strength is contagious. Vision is contagious. Belief is contagious. One transformed life can alter generations. Think about that. The discipline you develop today could change your family's future forever. The courage you display today could inspire someone else to stop living in fear. The business you build, the art you create, the leadership you embody could ripple outward farther than you currently imagine. Never underestimate the power of a fully committed human being. History moves because certain individuals decide they will no longer live beneath their potential. And that decision is available to you right now.